diving into All Elite Wrestling's Wrestle Dream, a show that wasn't afraid to roll the dice. They took risks, and whether those pay off or leave fans scratching their heads, you've got to admire the chutzpah. Take the finish, for instance. Bryan Danielson, the tough-as-nails champion, passed out in a submission hold to Jon Moxley. That's a bold way to drop the title. And then there's Wheeler Yuta. The kid goes full heel, suffocating Danielson with a plastic bag. Shocking stuff. It's the kind of ending that leaves a bitter taste, a sad note to cap off the pay-per-view. But that's what keeps the audience coming back. Unpredictability. Look at WrestleMania 39. Roman Reigns steals a win from Cody Rhodes, all due to underhanded tactics. Fast forward to WrestleMania 40, and Cody takes home both heavyweight titles. Sometimes, a controversial finish sets the stage for something great later on. Wrestling, after all, thrives on the unexpected. If every show ends with a happy, predictable ending, where's the intrigue? Fans want that thrill, that sense that anything can happen, faces or heels. It's a roller coaster ride. So, let's rewind to the 0 hour. Atlantis Jr. defended the Ring of Honor Television Championship against Brian Cage. I'll admit I was surprised Kaji snagged the win. The guy usually loses, and it raises eyebrows when Atlantis, not exactly a regular on the scene, holds the title. Kaji's been around the block. But hey, wrestling's got its own logic. The highlight? Atlantis spinning Cage like an airplane before slamming him down. Now that was a sight to behold. Next up, Anna Jay versus Harley Cameron. Nothing to write home about here. Everyone knew Jay was taking the win. Cameron's more of a punchline than a threat, a rapper who's not winning any awards. But Jay's been kicking butt in Japan, so they're building her up. It's nice to see a roster filled with familiar faces. Almost everyone, save for Atlantis, was a regular on the AEW stage. No surprise matches with unknowns this time. Then came the Acclaimed against MXM. Max Caster's rap, controversial gold, mentioning Kamala Harris and P. Diddy. Mason Madden, a big guy, played his part well, no selling moves like a champ. But MXM, they're stuck in a losing loop. It's a shame. They need a win to break that cycle and find a direction. Next, we had an 8-man tag that I'm not usually a fan of, but it didn't dominate the card, which was a relief. The Outrunners, with their Hogan-esque vibe, were overdoing scoop slams. They've got to mix it up. They won, but let's see some creativity in their offense. Tony Khan made a cameo, trying to lead a tribute to Antonio Inoki. It didn't go well. The crowd wasn't with him, and he had to ask for a do-over. Awkward moment, but you've got to respect the man for honoring a legend. Inoki changed the game, bringing a strong style that emphasized endurance and martial arts over quick finishes and cheap thrills. Then the opening pyro hit, and the Tacoma Dome erupted. It's a big motherfucker of a building, and the energy was palpable. Tonight's Wrestle Dream was a showcase of what happens when the wheels fall off the storytelling train. Fans are buzzing online about the glaring inconsistencies in booking, and it's hard to ignore. It's typical AEW, like a band that can't find the right key to play in. They need to hire some damn strong writers and admit they've got a storytelling problem. An announcement saying they're bringing in a story editor wouldn't hurt. People are tired of logic holes that make the product hard to digest. They've lost over 500,000 viewers, and that's a serious wake-up call. Let's kick it off the pay-per-view card with the first match, Adam Page versus Jay White. What a mess. This was a lose-lose situation. Page deserves a shot at the heavyweight title. He's been building a solid feud with Swerve Strickland, and right now, he should be in the title picture. Honestly, if he were gunning for that heavyweight belt, he could have that stone-cold vibe, a badass on a warpath. But instead, backstage chatter had Bryan Danielson dropping the title to Jon Moxley, leaving Page in a lurch. That's just a shame. And then Jay White, he just came back from injury. He can't afford to be on a losing streak, not again. The match had some solid brawling, but when Page hurt his leg on the ramp, it took away his big finisher, the buckshot lariat. Jay capitalized with his Blade Runner, a move that looks too damn much like Sister Abigail. The match was good, no doubt, but it's frustrating that Jay wins, and Page continues to flounder. Page deserves a winning streak, and they should set up a tournament that leads to a showdown with Moxley at Full Gear. Next up, we had Willow Nightingale against Mariah May. Honestly, this match didn't leave a mark on me. Great to see Willow challenging for the women's title, but come on, she just lost a street fight to Chris Statlander at All Out. How does that qualify her for a title shot? And what's with Statlander flipping from heel to face? Her excuse for the transformation was weak, to say the least. The audience isn't buying that she had some life-altering revelation. Instead, Willow should be on a winning streak, taking on opponents like Nyla Rose, while Mariah May could be feuding with Mina Shirakawa. The idea of Willow swooping in to save Mina after a beatdown would have had more logic and flair. The match wasn't terrible, but it could have been so much better if the story made sense. Then we had Jack Perry versus Katsuyori Shibata, and this was one of the highlights of the night. The story flowed easily, Shibata, the grizzled veteran, absorbing punishment like a sponge. But here's the kicker. All Elite hasn't really established Shibata's rich history, including his near-fatal brain surgery. They could have turned that into a big deal, but instead, he's just another guy cracking jokes with a translation box. The endurance he showed was impressive, but the finish, controversial, to say the least. Shibata put Perry in a submission, but Perry won because of a pinfall out of the hold. The fans were pissed, and that's the kind of heat you want, but it screams bad booking. They should be setting up Shibata for a rematch, not shoving Perry into another storyline with Daniel Garcia. And then MJF storms in, beating down Garcia, followed by Adam Cole coming to the rescue. It's like a goddamn soap opera. Wasn't Cole the villain? Now he's playing hero? And the dude looks smaller. Why the hell is MJF running from him? What's going on with the Undisputed Kingdom? Did Cole just abandon them? The theme of the night? Bad booking and logic holes everywhere. It's time for AEW to step up, acknowledge these issues, and commit to fixing them. If they don't, they'll keep losing fans and credibility. They need a hard reset on storytelling, or this roller coaster is just going to keep derailing. The match of the night was undeniably Konosuke Takeshita versus Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. These three showcased a brilliant blend of Japanese strong style and high-flying maneuvers, demonstrating impressive endurance throughout. The build-up to the match was well crafted, and while the use of the screwdriver and a table kept it interesting, I worry that critics like Dave Meltzer might focus too much on the ending. Takeshita's victory, aided by a screwdriver, played into the larger narrative of Ospreay lacking the killer instinct, which led to his rejection by the Don Callis family. Given the tensions built up on Dynamite, it made sense, but you know how critics can be. They often pick apart finishes. Then we had Kyle Fletcher delivering a shocking betrayal by attacking Ospreay with a Tiger Driver, which caught many off guard considering their friendship. This sets up a compelling storyline that could lead to a tag team match at Full Gear, where Ospreay and Ricochet join forces against the Don Callis family. Speaking of Ricochet, I can't help but criticize his mic skills. He sounds a bit like Mike Tyson with that distinct way of speaking. It's almost like he's channeling that idiotic vibe that some associate with Tyson due to his speech patterns, which can be distracting. Switching gears, the 2 out of 3 falls match between Hologram and Mortos felt a bit off. While there were some impressive spots, Hologram shouldn't have won. Mortos, with that intimidating bull mask, should have come out on top. Having him lose right after forming a faction with Jake the Snake Roberts doesn't make sense. A little commentary from Roberts could have added context and authority to the match, as it's generally accepted that larger wrestlers shouldn't frequently lose to smaller opponents. Then we had Darby Allin facing Brody King, which was another classic example of the small guy versus the big guy. Darby looked like a middle schooler who works at Hot Topic, while Brody King looked like he ate Hot Topic for lunch. Quite the visual. The match had its brutal moments, especially with the use of the ring steps, but AEW really needs to tighten up its disqualification rules. Ignoring the 10 count outside the ring undermines the logic of wrestling. While Darby winning sets up a showdown with Moxley down the line, it feels like they're missing out on other compelling stories, like a potential Adam Page versus Moxley match. Finally, there were rumors about Bobby Lashley or Shane McMahon showing up, but they didn't materialize. Instead, we got a segment with Swerve Strickland and MVP, hinting at a potential matchup between Shelton Benjamin and Strickland. I'd prefer to see Lashley debut at a later event, like Full Gear or World's End, rather than throwing everything out at once. It's much more effective to space things out for maximum impact. The next match was another standout, the Young Bucks versus Private Party. Private Party really impressed with their performance, and it was a smart decision to extend the match, allowing for multiple pinfall attempts and some phenomenal counters that kept the action engaging. Honestly, they deserve a rematch with the EVPs for the titles at World's End, which symbolizes both the year's end and a new beginning. It's great to see Private Party putting in such strong performances. If they can string together some solid showings on Dynamite, they could earn another title shot at Battle of the Belts, and potentially a match at Full Gear, culminating in a title win at World's End. Their storyline of working hard and wanting to be taken seriously is compelling. I also appreciated the nods to the Hardy Boys in their offense, especially with Brother Zay pulling off a Swanton bomb, given his history in a triple team match with them last year. It's a relief that they haven't broken up as a tag team. The focus should be on Private Party or the Outrunners going after the tag titles, since they're among the most popular teams right now. Having Top Flight watching from ringside adds intrigue, but it's essential that this doesn't lead to a feud. The story should be about Private Party's quest for the titles and making themselves a relevant force in the division. Then came Chris Jericho versus Mark Briscoe for the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship. I missed a lot of this match because I was getting food and a pink lemonade, but from what I gathered, it was a classic Jericho match with plenty of interference and chaos, including Jericho going through a table. However, I'm concerned about Mark Briscoe's future opponents. His victory over Jericho lacks a compelling narrative, and I fear that holding the Ring of Honor title may hinder his potential. He should be aiming for the All-Elite World Heavyweight Championship, given his charisma and mic skills. It's reminiscent of how CM Punk was once given the ECW Championship before he moved up the ranks. Briscoe should not be stuck in a smaller pond. The main event featured Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson, but honestly, I was pretty fatigued by that point, and nothing really stood out. The ending was controversial, with many in the crowd missing the moment Danielson went unconscious in a submission hold. It was frustrating, especially since Danielson is known for his submission expertise, and it feels odd for Moxley, who isn't as recognized for that style, to defeat him in that manner. There was also the issue of Marina Shafir tearing up the floor cushions to expose the concrete, which the referee seemingly ignored until it was too late, just a silly oversight. Moxley winning the title felt like a deflation for the audience, though I did appreciate Wheeler Yuta's character development when he executed Danielson's running knee and turned heel. The moment where all the babyfaces came down was effective in establishing the good guys and bad guys for future storylines, which is crucial, especially after Wrestle Dream. However, Jeff Jarrett's appearance raises some red flags. His involvement, particularly the shots of him assisting Danielson backstage and being present when he was taken away in an ambulance, feels like he's using his creative control to shine a light on himself. At his age, it's hard to justify him being in a prominent role, and if they go down that path, it could hurt the company, reminiscent of the creative missteps in WW and TNA. I'm glad the show ended on a somber note instead of a predictable happy ending. It's refreshing in a landscape where shows often tie everything up neatly. However, the logical inconsistencies throughout the matches detracted from the overall experience. Moving forward, AEW really needs to focus on coherent storytelling and address any issues with their narrative direction, especially as they head toward Full Gear. Overall, I'd give the show a D+.